Hey everyone, in this video I want to break down and debunk some of the math that the famous YouTuber Ali Abdul did. If you're not familiar, he just released a video on how he's paying half the price for a Tesla, and he works out the math as to how he accomplishes that. Unfortunately, I think, although I respect him as a YouTuber and all his success, I think some of his math is faulty. And there's a huge trend right now of young men who are making these YouTube videos who are trying to rationalize how they've reduced the price of a Tesla dramatically. But I think there's some personal bias involved, which leads to faulty thinking and them just trying to rationalize it through um, irrational behavior just to get a fancy car. So I'll kind of work it out, and my goal here is not to bash anyone, but it is to kind of help you make the best decisions. Of course, I'm a fan of Ali. I'm also in the personal development space, but I want you to make the best recommended choices yourself because a lot of people are rationalizing this and they're using small things like fuel savings and stuff, and it's just not sound logic. Ultimately, it is a super expensive car, not as expensive as a Lamborghini, and they want it as a want, not a need. They're trying to show off to an extent. And I see a lot of comments in his video, and they're just kind of like trying to do the same thing, or, they also bought a Tesla already and they're trying to rationalize it. So let's work out the math. So you'll see this spreadsheet that I have on my screen. 50K represents the price he paid off the lot when he purchased it, and 25K is the price that he claims that he actually paid on this. And these are in pounds, not dollars, but it's the same numeric principle, really. So, how did he accomplish this? The first thing he claims is through writing it off as a business expense. In the UK, he says it's a 19% business expense tax rate. So he poses the fact that if he had made £100,000 that year and he deducted the $50,000 for the car as an expense, then there'd be $50,000 left that he would be taxed on, which would cost him $9,500 in taxes. Essentially, the savings comes in because he's saying, if he didn't deduct this as an expense, he'd have to pay $100,000 worth of taxes. And so, since he's deducting that, he has to pay $50,000 less in taxes. And so, the amount that he's being taxed is lower. And so, that's $9,500 saved. And so, he deducts that from the price of the Tesla. Well, I can see where he's going with this logic. You have to be very careful with this logic when you are a shopper. And I'm sure you can understand it very well if you were to go to a retail store. It happens all the time in a retail store. Have you ever seen a sale that says something like, buy this product and your next product will be $50 off or $100 off? And then some customers, they get duped into thinking, oh my gosh, I spent $100 and now I'm getting $100 off. I just got everything for free. No, you actually didn't. You just spent over $100 in the store that you didn't need to spend. They got you. So they take that monetary amount off as if, they're deducting it from the first purchase. But that's not how it works. They're saying if you buy the first thing, then you get the second thing you purchase for an amount less. Let's just say you go to a clothing store, and this will make the logic very understandable. You go to a clothing store and you see a T-shirt that you want to buy, but you don't need to buy for $20. And then you see the sale that says, buy this T-shirt, buy any item, buy this T-shirt, and then get your next purchase $10 off. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, I bought this T-shirt for $20, and then it's basically like minus $10, so I really just got this T-shirt for $10, right? No, that's what the store wants you to think. The store wants to make money off of you. So what really happened wasn't that you spent $10 total. What you really did is you spent $20, and then on your second item, you spent more, maybe another $20, but then you got that discount. So you may spend 10 on maybe another t-shirt. So in total, you spent $30 that you didn't have to spend at that store. And that business owner got you good, took your money, and he made money off of you. And in your head, you're thinking, I only spent $10. So it's the same type of like trickery logic, that people use because of their biases to kind of, and sometimes when you're biased because you really want something or you really want to believe something, you will kind of force and persuade and convince yourself to the point where you won't take any other logic. So I wouldn't say Ali's really doing that. He's a very thoughtful, smart guy, open-minded too. So I'd love to hear his feedback on this. I think he would probably argue, well, I would have bought this Tesla anyways. Really? Well, I don't know if that's actually true. He probably didn't need this Tesla, but I think that's probably the logic, the best logic you could use to refute what I said. Well, I was going to buy this Tesla anyway, so it really is a 9,500 pound tax savings. Okay, so let's just assume that's the case. There's still faults with the rest of his math. So next he goes on to say that, okay, starting April 2020, the UK actually released a 0% tax for electric cars called Benefit in Kind to encourage more eco-friendly car usage. So, keep that in mind. This is only UK specific. That means that if anyone from the US or someone else tried to use this logic, who knows if you're actually going to be getting 0% tax off your car purchase? Probably not. So, yeah, he might be saving a little bit money here in taxes as well, but just keep in mind that's for UK only. And so, how much is that saved? Probably a percentage off the initial purchase as well. Now, he doesn't count that in his price deduction here. He jumps into the next thing here, which is the next price deduction. So he's already got it down to 40,500 pounds. How does he reduce the price even further? Well, he's saying that he's taking out stocks to pay for this. That's what I got from the video. I watched it numerous times and I couldn't really fathom why he would do this. I mean, first off, if you have stocks, usually the best route based on Warren Buffett's long-term approach and many others is to hold them for decades. That's how you grow the most value from them. You let them compound. Plus, if you hold them longer than a year, you get to pay long-term dividend capital gains tax, which is a much smaller number. So I'm assuming what happened here is that he took out some stocks that he purchased in under a year, which is why he has this hefty 32.5% tax rate that he mentions in his video. So essentially, he has to pay 32.5% in taxes on all the dividends that his stock gave out. Dividends are basically, any earnings that a company makes, they have the choice of paying them out as dividends for that year. It's usually just a small percentage of the stock price. But essentially, he's taking out a lot of dividends, apparently. Maybe not the stocks themselves, but the dividends to pay for this car. And he's saying, I have to pay 32% in taxes off all the, dividends I'm getting to pay for this car. So he's basically saying, if I did that, that's $13,000 that I have to pay in taxes. And I'm just going to deduct that from the price of my car. Well, think about that for a second. So he has 13,162 pounds in taxes that he has to pay when he withdraws them to pay for this car. Those are expenses. They're more expenses, not any type of discount or promotion. That you're saying, that's saying like if you go to the bank and the bank gives you a little, tax to withdraw the money that you already have in the bank, well, that's like saying, well, that tax is actually income. I made that money on taxes. No, the bank's charging you money, extra money to withdraw that money from the bank. So it's not an income, it's an additional expense you have to pay. But for some reason, he is rationalizing, well, that's actually a, discount on my car even further. We're getting a $13,000 discount. Now, I think he's, if I had to guess, he's rationalizing here. Well, I would have had to withdraw those dividends anyways, and therefore I am saving the money because somehow I'm able to pay for my car with these stock dividends without having to be taxed on them. He doesn't go into detail at all on how is that possible, but the one way I would assume is some type of stock purchase of a Tesla where you get to do that tax free. Now, I don't think there's a way to purchase a Tesla with just stock. And if there is, he really should have gone into more detail in his video on that. But it was only a short 6-minute video, and I don't think it's possible. You can purchase stock, but can you finance a car with stock without having to pay taxes on that? I don't think that's possible. And really, did you really need to withdraw and cash in on your stocks right now and pay that tax? He's probably arguing that he would have done it anyways and he would have had to pay that tax, but likely he probably could have held that money for decades and then, didn't have to withdraw it until much later in his life. God forbid, I really hope he's not withdrawing money from his retirement fund, his 401k, or his Roth IRA and getting the money from that department, because that is basically opposite of the purpose of that. They put in restrictions so that you don't withdraw your money early, so that you gain a lot of tax benefits from that. You can save hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime thanks to the power of compound interest if you hold that and save it in a Roth IRA or 401k for decades until you retire. If you withdraw early, there's penalties, there's tax penalties and so forth. But I don't see anything online really about how you're able to avoid paying taxes on your stock dividends by purchasing a car with your stock. So this one is a bit flabbergasting here. I think he's being a little quick to deduct this. It's a little flabbergasting. He's saying that I have to pay this much if I were to withdraw this amount. This is how much I'm taxed. That's an expense here. And instead of accounting that as an addition, like I have to pay this in addition to my cost of the car, instead of a plus sign, he is subtracting that from the cost of the car itself. So really, this should be an additional tax added on to the price of the car. But he's not treating it as an expense. He's treating it as some type of discount somehow, which, flabbergasts me. I have never heard of some type of purchase where you can just skip the tax on it by paying with stock. And it's rather a shame that he doesn't go into much detail at all on this. And he seems to be just a regular citizen, so I don't think he has any exclusive services or offers. Finally, and this one's maybe the most flabbergasting, he explains that he's in 60,000 pounds of student debt. And the law makes him pay 9% of everything he earns over 20,000 pounds to cover and pay down his student debt. Now, keep in mind, this is an expense. Most people, pretty much everyone, if they have a sane brain and they're somewhat smart, will acknowledge that debt is an expense. Debt is not a income. Debt is something that you owe someone that you have to pay off because they provided you an education and you have to pay that off. Makes sense, right? I'm trying to explain this in as simple terms as possible. And I'm not really that smart, really. And if I can understand this, I hope you can too. So he's saying, okay, I have to pay 9% above, everything I make over 20K a year. And so he's saying, okay, I've knocked down the price to 27,000 already. I'm going to knock it down even further with this student loan debt. And he's saying, 9% of the price that I pay for this car, that price I have to pay less, is $24.63. And I'm going to deduct that from that's another discount for the price of my car. Well, it's not a discount. You're saying you have to pay for some debt, and this should be added on to the price of your car. That it's another thing that you have to pay off, not something that all of a sudden becomes some form of income that reduces the price you have to pay for a car. What's unfortunate, and my frustration is not in Ali's video, but all the videos on YouTube of young men who are doing these strange math calculations to buy something they don't need to impress people they don't really need to impress. It's frustrating to me because if you were financially savvy and I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm just saying I really want to help other people, and I'd love to have some clarification. Maybe Ali, I don't think, I think he could help clarify, and he might just be like, oh, you missed this one thing, and I'd be like, oh, okay, that's what you mean. Oh, okay, and that's how you made it. You figured it out. Because I would love to buy a Tesla half price. I just want to figure out the math first. All the more power to you if you can. But I'm not seeing the math work out here. Again, I'm not criticizing, just kind of pointing out some facts here. So actually, when he did the final math, he said the final total is 24,877. I found the total to actually be 24,914. So I don't know if that was a miscalculation on his part or I did the math wrong somehow. But he's essentially saying, here's the final price. Here's the price I've knocked it down to so far, 27 pounds. That's the price that I supposedly got my Tesla down to. And he's treating this as income when it's not. The price of a car is not income. That's another expense you have to pay off. And he's saying, okay, this is income. I bought this car and it's worth 27,000, and so I'm going to chalk it up as income. So because of that, I have to pay 9% of that off as student debt. So since I have to pay my student debt, I can discount that off the price of my car. No, you would add these, not subtract them, if anything. It wouldn't be subtracting. It's like you got to pay for the car. You also got to pay for the student debt, which, by the way, you shouldn't have to pay for it because through legal and ethical reasons, this car is not a income. It's another expense you have to pay off. So he's treating this as income, but it's another expense that you have to pay off. And on top of that, it's just not something that you can deduct. Let me put it in simple terms. Let's say you go to let's use the clothing store example again. Let's say you go to a clothing store and you buy a suit for $500. This represents the expensive Tesla. You buy an expensive suit for $500. Let's make it 600 just to signify how more expensive it is and to not confuse the numbers with anything else. Let's make it 700 just so it doesn't confuse with any previous numbers mentioned. You buy this expensive suit for $7,000. And then you tell everyone, hey guys, I just spent $700 on this suit. Oh, yeah, and I'm also in student debt. And the government forces me to pay taxes on everything I earn. And since I just earned $700 from buying this suit, I just saved another 9% of that, which I believe is 9 times 7, $36 in taxes. If you told anyone that, they'd be like, "What are anyone rational at least?" They'd be like, What are you saying? Like those are both expenses. You didn't make any money." To put it in the most simple terms, it's like if you were eating lunch with your friend and you told them, "Hey, I just spent $700 on a suit. I just made money." And they're going to ask you, "How did you make money?" "Well, the suit cost $700. I just made money." Does that make any sense? No. You spent money on the suit. You didn't make money. You just lost $700 from your bank account. And it's like saying right after to your friend at lunch, "Oh, and then I also made another $36. Your friend asks you, "Well, how'd you make that?" "Well, the suit cost me $36 in taxes. That's some more savings. I can deduct that from the price of the suit." They would be looking at you like, "What are you talking about? Taxes are an expense. That's more money out of your bank account. That's not something that you gain." That's like saying, "Okay, I just paid $36 in taxes, 700 minus 36. Okay, I really only paid 600 and what is it? $64 for this suit." Because, the taxes are income. So, yeah, let's just deduct that from the price of the suit. It just doesn't really work. I don't understand. Maybe someone can help clarify here because I want to understand the math. So maybe, I don't know, I can get some clarity. I want to help people out, and I don't want them to be led astray here. So I don't know what's going on. My theory is that, a lot of people, it's human nature to have personal bias really cloud your judgment. When you really want something bad, and, I'm not immune to this, no one is. When you really want something bad, either to show off to someone or to have for yourself, you will make up reasons. You will rationalize everything to the point where you can't listen to anyone else. You won't be open to that. You figured out these rationalizations that to me just don't make sense. So yeah, this one's pretty flabbergasting. If I had to say any of these were somewhat legitimate, maybe it's the first one where you write it off as a business expense. Um, you know, he does have that benefit in kind thing, and it could be. I think if he would have bought the Tesla anyways, which I don't think really he needs to or is actually true, but then yeah, if you mark it as a business expense, you can save some money in taxes that you don't have to pay. Uh, but is that always the most ethical thing to do? Is that sure, a lot of solopreneur YouTube travel people tend to do that, but in terms of a real business, it's you want to make your revenue and profits look good, and the more shady accounting you do, the more stuff you write off that doesn't need to, that leads to Enron situations or issues like that where it's just not the case. I think certain elements like this, you can definitely do it. I don't look down on it at all, especially if you're in the UK. Remember, this is UK only, so there's a benefit in kind tax exemption in the UK implemented this year, which basically allows you to write off something as a business expense, even though you're using it mostly for personal reasons. That's really cool. I don't think the US or other countries have that. So, that's just keep that in mind. The other two, really suspect about. I think what really irks me about this video is he concludes by saying, if you have a business, you're getting all the stuff you buy at half price. And that really got me going. I mean, if you asked most business owners, I think they would also dispute you on that. That's just not the case. Things cost money. Like, you can't just be, you know, saying you have student debt and somehow tricking your accountant to saying that, okay, now I can deduct the I can make the price of all the things I buy for my business, the factory, the laptops, half price. Like, I don't see the logic behind that. To claim that if you own a business, you get all the stuff you buy for half price, it doesn't make sense. Like, even if you were to, ignore the student loan debt thing and just focus on the dividend thing, like, where do the business owners get all these stock dividends from? It's not like they have a Robinhood account with $1 million in stocks that they can just withdraw from and then use some um, strange accounting gimmick to essentially get all their business expenses for half off. What irks me most is that if you go to Ali's video, a lot of the comments are basically like, wow, you're very smart. I'm going to try this out. Or, you're so smart. I don't understand the math. This was way over my head. And, this is great. Like, let's just, I want to buy a Tesla now. And I don't think his intention is to lead people astray, but it can get very, very uh, off in certain ways. Eh, I mean, I don't think that this math is hard at all. I think most people with average intelligence, if they worked hard and worked at it, they can figure out this math too and debunk some of what Ali is saying. Um, but it's not something that it's disappointing to me um, that I see some of this, because it's like, well, you know, you can't just be taking people's word on this stuff. You have to, stop thinking that people are so smart and just going with it. Look at this guy. I didn't understand shit, but I'm glad you paid only half for such a car. I mean, I love the love that he's showing this guy, but you have to do your own math for your own good. And trust me, I was someone who thought that I wasn't that smart when I first got into finance. I read and watched Warren Buffett's content, and a lot of the finance he talked about was way over my head. And it still is to this day. But, I worked at it and I was able to come up with some of this math. And I think you can too. Don't just kind of go with, you know, what other people are saying. Don't just praise this person as a tax expert or, well, that's how you take advantage of taxes. Clearly, just assuming that someone is flawless and perfect in their logic, because that can cause a lot of issues for you and for others. Those simple things like doing your own homework really pay. I remember one time I spent years as a kid putting all the cash I earned into this box, and I would hide this box in a safe, secret place in my bedroom. One day I noticed some of the cash was gone, but didn't know for sure. And it turns out my dad had stole some of it, supposedly unintentionally. And I never thought to even count any of it because I just felt like I trust myself, like it's all in there. Now I was exposed because I didn't know how much my dad stole. And even though he returned some of it, I never knew for sure if he returned all of it. So these are simple things that, you just need to put in the work to work out the math as well. Uh, this is one guy who actually has like something to say, like, this is a gray area. I'd be careful about broadcasting such activities. So, he knows he has a little bit of doubt here. Um, but, this is he's more so just focused on the ethics of it. Um, Honestly, I don't think anything here is really unethical. I don't think that's his intention. He's clearly like doing it from a good spirit. It's just I don't think he himself knows that some of this math is maybe off. I don't think, as this guy claims, it's financial fraud. I think he has good intentions. Just the the math is backwards. He rationalized something off here. So, in a nutshell, I really hope you consider some of this. It's flabbergasting. I really hope he does some more clarification on it. Graham Stephan did a video where he's paying $0 for a Tesla. That also has some faulty math as well. And I actually took Graham's video and posted it in a Toyota Camry group. This group has thousands of members on Facebook, and of course, they're very thrifty and they understand the math of a car, a affordable car versus a expensive car, like a Tesla. And they poked a bunch of holes through Graham's math as well. Um, and when you really shine a light on it, essentially it's people trying to really get an expensive car for less. And at the end of the day, an expensive car is an expensive car, and um, some of these calculations they really need another light shone through. So take it as you will, and I'm really hoping that some people okay, looks like there's this other guy who kind of like is a little bit smart, and I'm hoping that with such a large audience there are people like this, so maybe people will perk up their ears and figure it out. This guy's saying his argument on student loan doesn't make sense. The quicker you pay your student loans down is the better, isn't it? Why is he considering dragging it out? It is not mediocre levels where you're charged by percentage of your income. So this guy, he makes a different point than I did, but it's also very useful. So, you know, I think people assume that Ali is this savior or, knows, is an expert on all things related to personal development, including finance, because he has such a large presence and people love him so much. However, that's not always the case here. And, if I'd love to see Dave Ramsey come in and react to this video because he would poke some holes in this as well. First and foremost, when you have a super high interest rate on your debt, or even a lower one with student loans, you want to pay that off because then your debt starts to snowball with the power of compound interest into something much, much, much larger. And so, what would make the most financial sense, even though it's not the most flashy or will get you the most cool looks from others when they see you in your Tesla or other fancy things, is to pay down that debt first. That way, your debt doesn't balloon and you don't end up paying much more in the future in aggregate. Instead, he's letting the debt kind of roll and he's purchasing a Tesla. And even if let's just assume that all these financial gimmicks are mathematically sound and my logic is flawed. Despite that, he's still paying £24,000, 25,000 almost, on a car that gets him from point A to point B when he could be paying 5,000 or even less for a relatively decent car. And it really ends up speaking, and now I'm switching my hat to the business owner's standpoint of why do humans do this? Why do they go out of their way to rationalize in circular ways buying super expensive stuff that they don't need to? And how can business owners make more money off of that? Well, there's a certain luxury and status and coolness as a hobby, but also as a status symbol, a biological uh, reaction to attracting women, but also a hobby and love and respect for Elon Musk and the whole tech scene and the car scene. So, when you add that to the luxury style and feel of this high status symbol, all these are clear psychological triggers that a business can employ to really make a lot of money off customers. And not only do that, but drive them into such a state of doing that that they will just do it no matter what. You could present the numbers, you can present the logic as to why it's not the best choice to make, you can present the amount of debt that they have to pay off, and they will still take money out of their account and pay for it. That is a strong motivator. And as an investor and business owner, that's something that you should look for when you're trying to choose which companies to invest in. Is it the most ethical? No. And that's why I hate it. And that's why I really, am kind of upset about videos like this in a way and how they can lead people astray. But if you can't beat them, join them, So that's it in a nutshell. This is the long version, thorough explanation of my article. I do a short, too long didn't read version as well that I'll probably be uploading. Thanks for watching.